All right, so I want to update everyone on the cases from yesterday as usual, as well as getting in some other important stuff. And there's some pretty important stuff that's came out over the last day, so let's get right into it here. Canada's up to 15,822 cases with 293 dead. So the death rate is definitely going up in Canada. It hovered around 1% for the first couple of weeks of this whole thing. Now we're up to almost 2%. So yeah, it's definitely going up. It's also the same in Alberta as well. So Alberta had 69 new cases yesterday, which is down from 106 and 107. So it's good that the case numbers are going down. According to this, they have 279 recovered cases. Now, I don't know exactly what they mean by recovered. If you have to go back and get tested, I don't know how they figure that out, but I guess that's what they have. We're up to 64,806 people tested. So that's a lot of people that have been tested. Like I say, we had three more people die yesterday in Alberta. I don't know exactly how many that was in Canada, but I know the numbers are going up by a decent amount. But like I say, we are down for the number of new cases from yesterday, so that's a very good sign. Again, Calgary's the main area you have to worry about. Edmonton to a degree, but other than that, not a whole lot to worry about other than in the north zone, wherever these people that have it are. That would definitely be an area to worry about. Um, but that's about it as far as Canada goes. Like I say, the numbers are seeming to trend down slightly, but again, there is certain areas around the world that the numbers are still, going very high. Namely, New York, Spain. I think Italy slowed down a little bit, but the Spain and New York are still going up by a ton. I think New York had like 700 people or something like that die yesterday, so that's a very crazy amount. Yeah, like I say, in New York, they're going crazy there, but other than that, not a whole, not it's not really that bad, other than specific pockets of areas. Um, but getting into some other important stuff here. This is from Andy No. He says Seattle police chief urges public to call 911 if they're called racist names during the virus pandemic. And again, this is absolutely retarded in that being racist, although it is very, I think, ignorant, tone deaf, the wrong thing to do, um, it's not illegal, and we don't need to be calling 911 for people doing that. Number one, because it's relatively rare, and number two, we're at a point in time to where we don't want to be wasting precious resources. Like, imagine if there's someone dying or getting robbed, and the 911's you know slightly slower. The police response is slightly slower, but because calling in someone calling them a racist name. And the other problem with this is it might not even be racist either. It might just be one of these, SJW, far left kind of people seeing a white man and, him being, maybe a little ignorant or, whatever, and them saying, "Oh, he was being racist against me." Like, come on, this is just absolutely insane. And why are we worrying about this kind of stuff? Like, again, what? And I know it's in the States, but in Canada, we have hate speech on the books and all that kind of BS too. So don't tell me, oh, it's just the States. No, in Canada, it's worse. The States, at least most areas, still enforce the First Amendment. In Canada, we don't have a First Amendment. We don't have free speech. Um, there's a lot of exceptions to our free speech, and whenever there's exceptions to free speech, aside from call to violence, you don't have free speech. Again, you don't have free speech if there's any exceptions other than a call to violence. And calling someone a mean name um, isn't isn't violence, right? That the Supreme Court in the states has ruled that's before that hate speech isn't is the same, is allowed in free speech, basically, for lack of a better way of putting it. But I wanted to bring this up because this is where the left is at. That we have a global pandemic, we have probably the worst unemployment the country's ever seen, maybe the worst recession the country's ever seen, and yet we're worried about this kind of stuff. Again, in Canada, we had that too. We had the TAM and all these people worried about um, calling it the Chinese virus or the Wuhan virus is racist. Like, again, spending a bunch of time on that is just wasting time that we could be spending on doing something productive. and it's a complete non-issue too. It's not racist to call it the Chinese virus. Again, makes no sense. Um, this is from the Post Millennial. They go on to say Trudeau government gives 159 million to developing countries for feminism. Canada's investment in these programs is in line with its feminist international assistance. A statement released Sunday said, and again, why are we giving away money when we don't even have enough to pay our own people? Like the government doesn't. I mean, they'll just go into massive amounts of debt. But why would we give away massive amounts of money when we don't even have enough money to afford our where we're currently going? Why aren't we giving this money to help, pay for people who can't afford their bills right now? Why not give this money for people who can't afford to pay their rent? Again, there's no. I challenge someone to come up with a good argument for this. Again, please come up with a good argument for why we should be doing this. And if we're going to help foreign countries, let's at least help foreign countries in a good way, not feminism. I mean, I think this money goes to help pay for abortions, basically. I think is what it is. But again, if we're going to help foreign countries, let's at least make it for a good cause, not this feminist bullshit. Like, come on. It's absolutely crazy that the level of, tone deafness and arrogance and all this kind of stuff of the current government is absolutely astounding. Like, again, absolutely astounding. Um, and the fact that there isn't, mass revolt and protest is beyond my mind. But again, the fact that they got reelected last election is kind of telling of why that's not happening. Um, this is from Andrew Lawton. He goes on to say Theresa Tam has reversed its previous opposition. I get her previous opposition, or the government's previous opposition to people wearing non-medical masks. Now says it can help prevent transmission if asymptomatic people wear them. And again, we knew this. Like again, I'm a complete amateur when it comes to knowledge of this topic, but yet I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that wearing masks helps. And we have people who are supposed to be experts in the field, and yet they don't understand this kind of stuff. Like, to me, it just goes to show just how terrible and mismanaged the current government is. And again, I always like to mention I really don't like hating on the government so much. Like honestly, it does get a little bit old. But the fact, like I always say, that they continuously put their foot in their mouth, they continuously screw up, even be like they outdo themselves. Like they can't just do something right for once. They can't just, when the evidence is clear in the first place, just say, yeah, this is how it is. We don't care about the social justice warrior BS outrage. We're going to tell you what's, we're not going to be, oh, it's racist to call it the Chinese virus. And again, they flip-flopped on that. Borders don't work. And then, they flip-flopped on that. And they flip-flop on this. Like, they flip-flop on absolutely everything. Absolutely everything. And again, the like the level of this government, like just how bad it is, how incompetent it is absolutely astounding. Like astounding. Like if we would have had our heads on straight, if we would have closed the borders when when we were first warned about it, in late January or early February, if we would have kept our own stockpile and stocked up on medical equipment, or at the very least kept the amount we currently had, if we would have taken this more seriously, it would have hit us much less hard, like way less hard. We more than likely could have kept people working. The economy would still be largely going, and that would be a massive advantage for us because almost every country in the world shut down right now. And but because our government's so incompetent, we can't do that. And for all the people still defending them, again, like I literally don't have words for you. Like this, almost exclusively responsible for this kind of stuff, and yet you still support them. Like what you're saying is there's literally nothing it would take for you to change your mind. Like an example of someone who has a good critical thinking skills, all that kind of stuff. There has to be something that would get you to change your mind. But by holding these positions, you're saying there's literally nothing. Um, Last thing here, this is from Ezreal Levante. He goes on to say Canada's point man on the pandemic is not a doctor or nurse. She's got a degree in anthropology and she's met Trudeau's gender quota test. And again, that's obviously Patty Haju. And again, she has had her. I mean, number one, she's continued to spout these communist Chinese talking points, um, and relying on their numbers that I think anybody with a half a brain in their head can tell are fake numbers. Number one, because they admitted that they off the start they only included people if they test positive. They only included them in their numbers if they showed symptoms. And number two, I think it's blatantly obvious, even if we didn't have that, you know, fact, that their numbers are way underreported. They're a very dense country that apparently has less cases than the States, less cases than Spain, less cases than Italy. Like I don't think anybody with, like I say, a shred of critical thinking skills can believe that. Um, and yet we have these people that are leading up our efforts on this whole issue, and they're buying into this BS from China. And like I said, they don't even have any experience. So like, something that bothers me so much about the left is they're always big on their having a university degree. Like you got to go to college. You need your credentials to do a job that requires you to do something that you could be taught in like a month, but yet you have to go to school for 4 years to get to and pay hundreds of thousands of dollars when you could learn it in a month or two. But anyway, and yet the person heading this up doesn't even not a doctor, like not even a doctor. It's absolutely insane. Like I say too, I like the one thing too. I've said that they're incompetent. A lot of ways they're incompetent, but I refuse to believe that that these kind of people can be this incompetent. Like seriously, like someone like me who's pretty amateur when it comes to most of knowledge in most of this kind of stuff when it comes to this virus would have handled it better. Like, and I've no medical background, none like in economics. Yeah, I know a decent amount, but when it comes to most of this kind of stuff, nothing. Like I get my info from people on YouTube. The guys that again them have formal experience, and yet, like I say, I don't want to talk too much about this kind of stuff, but like I say, dude, just the level of incompetence, whatever you want to call it, is absolutely astounding. Most of the pain and suffering going on right now, like I say, largely because of China, but we have a government in Canada where, Justin Trudeau has praised their basic dictatorship. We have our, public health minister who's taking all their BS lies and, hook, line, and sinker. And yet, like I say, I'm not going to let Canada off the hook for this one. Yeah, China's largely responsible, but like I say, we have a prime minister who praises their basic dictatorship. We have a public health minister who believes all their lies. Again, like I say, yeah, China's responsible, but I don't think Canada could be any more, hand in hand with China. Like seriously, like we couldn't be any more hand in hand with China. Like we might as well just call ourselves, the Canadian Communist Party or whatever they want to call it. Like that's basically where we're at. And like I say, absolutely astounding that this is the level we're at in Canada. That I've heard reports now that we're not going to be able to open up the economy for another till July. I've heard July. I've heard June at the earliest. And to me, that's crazy that we're gonna have to go another 2 or 3 months. Um, like I say, there may be a mass unrest. Um, the government more than likely is going to experiment with more authoritarian martial law kind of stuff, and the average person is going to have to sit around here suffering, because the government is so terribly mismanaged that like I say, it can't even be measured the level of mismanagement that's been done here. Um, but anyway, I've kind of rambled on long enough about this kind of stuff. I'm going to leave it there. If you like the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. I will be releasing another video later today, so stay tuned for that. Um, I do have my PayPal and email linked in the, uh, the description if you like the video, or sorry, I appreciate any donations, but like I say, at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already.